tell us how the Johnny Cash project came about and how you first got together with Aaron.
Aaron and I met at a conference in Portugal called Off, and I was watching his presentation, and he does a lot of crowdsourcing stuff, which I was interested in, and I'm really interested in the music video model and what it can now become, because there's been this gigantic shift in the presentation model for music videos. It was MTV, and everything used to be about getting it on MTV, and MTV stopped playing videos in America, at least. I'm not sure what they do here. And now it's all on the internet. So people are still, myself included, have been continuing to make music videos the same way, as if it's for television. But the internet is, of course, it's a different canvas. And whereas television is a one-way channel and someone sits there and is passive and it's spoon-fed to them, the internet allows this interaction. And I have this sort of larger fundamental problem with music videos, in that for me, they don't approach the same emotional resonance that just straight music has. Straight music is interactive because you can sort of listen to it through your life, and it becomes a soundtrack to your life. You listen to it in the car, you can sing along with it, it becomes the score to that one relationship with that one girl over that one summer. And I'm really interested, and music videos don't have that, but it's very concrete. It's me as a director or another director given this sort of very rigid set of images to go along to the music. And I think, sadly, that it in some instances hurts the actual music. So I'm really interested in exploring ways to use the internet as if you accept the fate of the music video only going to be broadcast or primarily broadcast on the internet, and you use the internet for what it can do that television can't, you can create these new and interesting things. And this is just sort of one version of it, one experiment to that end.
So were you aware going in? I mean, obviously, you start with the idea of what the video is, and would it be a good time now to?
Yeah, probably.
Just show the clip you have.
I was first shown the Johnny Cash project through my mom. She knew I loved Johnny. She knew I loved drawing. So when I checked out the website, I was completely blown away. I got to see people's artwork flashing before my eyes, just different images, but always following this cohesive video storyline.
The whole video was full of hauntingly beautiful imagery and symbolism that worked absolutely perfectly with Johnny's song. The frames are somewhat randomly distributed, and you had a limited choice of tools and textures. So really your main focus was just in what you wanted to say.
It was like this organic thing that was always changing, because people would be submitting and submitting, and you could see hundreds of variations of the same video. What better way to pay tribute to the man than to make something for one of his songs?
I felt really sad when he died, and I just thought it would be wonderful. It would be really nice to contribute something to his memory.
It really allows this last recording of his to be a living, breathing memorial. I am honored to have inadvertently made a contribution to something so magical.
For all of the frames to be drawn by fans, each individual frame, it's got a very powerful feeling to it.
It's just amazing to see so many Johnny Cash fans collaborate on some of his final work. The artists that contributed, I mean, I've seen everybody from Japan, Venezuela, to the States, to Knoxville, Tennessee.
As much as it's different from frame to frame, it really is personal.
Watching back the video of my frame, I could see me not understanding at the beginning of it, and I just worked through problems until my little wee battles that I was fighting within the picture all began to resolve themselves. You can actually see the point where I know what I'm doing when a light and a dark comes into it. And in a weird way, that's what I actually like about Johnny Cash's music as well. It's the sum total of his life, all the things that have happened. The bad things, the good things, you're hearing a person's life.
His relationship with the Master has helped me in my own personal spiritual struggle and journey through life.
I didn't know that I could connect to someone from such a different background as mine, and for it to mean quite as much as it does.
There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. When I hear that trumpet sound, I'm gonna rise right out of the ground. Ain't no grave can hold my body down. Well, look way down the river, and what do you think I see? I see a band of angels, and they're coming after me. Ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. Well, look down yonder, Gabriel, put your feet on the land and see. But Gabriel, don't you blow your trumpet till you hear from me. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. Ain't no grave can hold my body down. Well, meet me, Jesus, meet me in the middle of the air. And if these wings don't fail me, I will meet you anywhere. Ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. Well, meet me, mother and father, meet me down the river road. And mama, you know that I'll be there when I check in my load. Ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down.
Really amazing. How many people ended up contributing?
I think it's I'm not sure exactly. I think it's maybe 40,000 now or something.
Wow. So was the idea going in just simply make a video where each person contributes a frame? And did you know sort of the tech challenges and what that entailed going in?
Yeah, the idea going in was how can we crowdsource a music video, and how can we find an artist that this could actually work for? Because as soon as you sort of open it up to the anonymous crowd of the internet, you're going to get pretty much anything the internet cares to give you, and sometimes that's, an abundance of penises. So we wanted to find the right artist, and if you did this for Kanye West, it'd be a very you'd have to do a lot of moderation. So I was carrying around this idea, and I actually ran into Rick Rubin, who I had worked with previously on a U2 project, and we started talking, and I mentioned I had this idea, and I said, if there was like a Johnny Cash track that you had left over or something, that maybe it was for a benefit album, it could work for that. And he said, I'm finishing the final Johnny Cash album right now, and I have what can we possibly do for a visual for it? I'm at a complete loss. So it was just sort of fate that we found each other. And from a conceptual point of view, it works really well because it's Johnny's singing about his own resurrection and his own eternal life, and really, not to get too fruity, but it's like what he's the way that his spirit carries on is through the hearts and minds of his fans. So this is sort of like the perfect physical manifestation of that idea, because it's his fans are essentially generating his last video, and to the people that were involved, it was, I think, it was really important to them. From a technical standpoint, we built it all in Flash, so it wasn't like we weren't reinventing the wheel. I knew that we were going to have some pretty complex database management with all the things that were coming through. We had a lot of monitoring to approve the right frames and try to aggregate the frames properly. There's multiple versions of the video that you can watch. There's the highest rated frames, there's the newest frames, there's the most brushstrokes. I mean, the biggest technical challenge was just we didn't have very much money to do it. So if we had all the money in the world, we could have gone to we could have gone anywhere to had a team of 100 work this thing out. Instead, we had to stay really small and compact and do it with a very small team. So that was probably the hardest. But from a technical standpoint, we weren't really doing anything that crazy or difficult.
Just from a time standpoint, I want to make sure we cover the Arcade Fire project. How many people saw or participated in or experienced the Arcade Fire Wilderness Downtown video? Most of you.
Okay.
So this is a project where maybe there was more of a mandate going in to use specific technologies. So can you just talk about, again, where that project started? Was it with the band? Was it with Google? Was it with you and Aaron, or some combination?
So the way that happened was, I have a relationship with Aaron, and Google was very aware of the Johnny Cash project because Aaron works at Google Creative Lab. So Google's really interested in promoting this idea of the next web and what the web is capable of using these new technologies that are just starting to come out, like HTML5, because their browser handles it particularly well. So they were really interested in putting resources behind a project that showcased in a very high-profile way what HTML5 can do. So Google actually approached me and asked me if I knew any bands that maybe we could do a music video, this sort of music video for. I'm friends with Win, the lead singer of Arcade Fire. I emailed him. We started talking about it. This is early, just like January. They were recording the album at the time, so he started sending me tracks, and we were talking about what track would be right. I went to Montreal and talked to them more about conceptually what I was thinking, what they were thinking. And then I finally picked a track and just locked myself in my house for a few weeks and wrote this concept. And then from there, Aaron and I kind of worked in concert with a company called Be Real to do all the web production. I also did a bunch of shooting through Radical Media, my production company, and that was the kid running down the street. So it was probably, physical production-wise, it was probably a 3-month production, but many months of figuring out what we should do in the first place.
So where did the actual idea, so you have all of these elements, where did the idea itself, it's a very simple and emotional idea, that the person running and that sort of homecoming.
Yeah. It's a gigantic answer to a small question. There's a lot of different places it comes from. I mean, I'm really fascinated in memory, like what I was talking about before, where we have this emotional connection to music. I find, like, of our 5 senses, for some reason, in my mind anyway, that smell and sound and hearing is linked to deep links to emotional memories, specifically music. Like if I smell Calvin Klein Obsessions, I'm transported to my high school junior year girlfriend and in her parents' basement making out. And the same thing for music. There's just some deep connection. Like I don't have that when I see a movie from when I was a kid, or when I feel a flannel sheet like I used to sleep on. But something about smell and music, it links you to that memory. The problem is, if you're doing a music video, it's for a song that most people haven't heard before, and you haven't really, they don't have an emotional memory. You're sort of creating this visual association with it, which, like I said before, I kind of had a little bit of a problem with. So I was thinking about, you know, there's the internet, in addition to having this two-way pipe, where in Johnny Cash you can have people contributing to the piece. The other thing about the video or the piece existing on the internet is you have access to all these thousands of data sets. And the thing about Google Maps, Earth, and Street View is it's a data set, but it also has this incredible baked-in emotional context for people. And you're sort of, you can actually, if you utilize it, like we did, I mean, it's a bit of a parlor trick, but essentially what you're doing is you're taking someone's pre-existing memories, stirring it up and associating it with this new song. So they don't have to go out, they don't have to have the summer with the one girl where they listen to this song in the car. You're kind of tying it into whatever their emotional memories are of their house and their street. And everyone has a childhood, everyone has a house that they grew up in, so it's pretty universal. And this is just like putting it in that context. So Google wanted to highlight the technical, and you know, I'm really conscious of tech demos, and they can be sort of sterile sometimes. It was trying to figure out a way to have the emotional resonance and context for people, that it becomes more than just you know, than just an example of technology.
So how do you, if to the extent that you can articulate this, because it is such an emotional experience, and it's one of the old chestnuts that, you know, since the dawn of the digital age, people would say, well, a website can't make you cry, i.e., you know, filmmaking was such, evokes emotions that you don't get on the internet or whatever. And this was such a great example of, you know, a use of technology that was just very simple and just pure emotional experience. And you've said before in an interview with us that it's easy to lose the humanity when you start showcasing tech. So how do you, you know, just, you want to be a storyteller, how do you keep making it about that?
It's hard. I mean, it depends on the project, it depends on the music. I mean, to me, I listen to that music, and the first thing I heard with those piano notes is somebody running really fast, and then started thinking about the technology that I could use, and thinking about HTML5, and thinking the other resources that I could pull in from Google, being, you know, the map view and the street view, and just trying to find, I mean, to me, the from a personal note, like the runner is, that's me running home from my girlfriend's house after, when I found out she was cheating on me when I was 17 years old, and I'm running back to my house. That's what, when I look at my street and I look at the street view, like that's the thing that's the note that's plucked. That's what I remember. That's the memory that stands out the most. So I hear these footsteps. I mean, I hear the music. I see these footsteps in my head. I think about, like, how do I take the tech and make it some sort of narrative story, emotional context that people can have these individual experiences with, and it all gets kind of jumbled up and into this big soup of a video. And then you try to, like, iron it out so it kind of all flows together with a, you know, somewhat of, in this particular case, somewhat of an abstract narrative, but there's something there.
So do both of these projects represent, you know, a different way of working for you in terms of the number of people you're collaborating with and who they are?
Yeah, it's definitely a different set of people. I mean, with the Johnny Cash project, it was all post-production. So I'm doing an edit of archival footage, and then I'm working with a web production house to build the site. With Arcade Fire, I'm actually doing physical film production. We shot a day in Los Angeles with a runner and, you know, a crane on a car and 35mm anamorphic film. And so it was more like a traditional music video. And then there's this extra step of working with a web production house. But it's really, I mean, working with a web production house is very similar to working with a 3D CGI house or an editorial house or any other post-production house that I would normally collaborate with a group of artists at. It's a little different because code is it's more of a fickle beast. I mean, if you're doing CGI, you know, you might tweak the animation, you might tweak the model, but you're just dealing with a very, you know, you tweak it in this one shot and it's fine. In web production, you know, you try to add some more birds to your one little interactive square, and then suddenly like the whole site doesn't work anymore on Macintosh computers, and it takes like 2 days to figure out what went wrong in the code to mess everything up. So that can be frustrating, but from a creative standpoint, filmmaking is a collaborative art form. You can't just do it on your own. So whether it's a production designer, a cinematographer, or a team of coders, I mean, it's all a creative collaboration.
Have the forms of these projects, especially the Arcade Fire one, you know, given that it's an interactive form of storytelling, has that changed the way you think about storytelling, or do you have any thoughts about, you know, where interactive storytelling is going?
Yeah, I don't really know where it's going, because I think it's going someplace. I can't say exactly where it's going. I'm really interested in exploring where it can go. You know, I mean, the thing that was interesting about Arcade Fire grew out of the Johnny Cash project, because what I saw with the Johnny Cash project was, for the people that participated, it was really an emotional experience, but it took a lot of time to draw a portrait of Johnny. And then when it ended up, if their frame ended up in one of the versions of the videos, it was just 1/8 of a second. Whereas Arcade Fire, so with Arcade Fire, I wanted to try to flip the math, where it's a very small time investment up front, and then there's a lot of you in that. So to do that, you really are generating an individual video for each viewer. And I think that's really, I'm really interested in what else that can be if each video, each viewing is personalized for the person and they can interact with it. I think there's also a lot of opportunity to tell stories, because we're so sophisticated in the way that we consume media now. I mean, 20 years ago, you watched a television show, then you went to the cinema, you saw a movie. Now we're on the iPad while watching television, while talking on our cell phone. We're so much more sophisticated in how much media we can absorb from so many different outlets. And I think there's an interesting future to trying to tell narratives through multiple media points. And the transmedia is the buzzword. But I'm really interested in trying to tell a story that maybe starts on the internet and then moves into a concert or an opera, and then that moves into a feature film sort of thing. And at each step you learn more about the characters and learn more about the narrative, and it's sort of the cinema experience becomes the kind of, you know, the grand finale of the whole piece.
So what's next? Are you doing that?
Yeah, I'm doing something. I'm doing something like that. I'm working with. It's a concept album that I'm working with. It's Danger Mouse and Daniel Lupi, who's an Italian composer, and Jack White from the White Stripes, and Nora Jones, and it's a project called Rome. And it's sort of, the closest thing to it is sort of Pink Floyd The Wall, where it's an album, sort of a concept album that feels like a soundtrack to a movie, but the movie doesn't exist. And slowly, as you see the different visual outputs of the project, you'll learn more and more, and the final piece will be an actual film that you go see in a theater.
So what was the response from Wilderness Downtown, both in terms of like the impact on the song and the band, and just, you know, the response from the public and Google?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite good. I thought it would be sort of similar to what Johnny Cash was, which was more of a niche thing, but it seemed to get a fair amount of attention. I mean, it was great for the band. They get in every press thing I read, it's like Arcade Fire, they reinvent music videos, congratulations to them. So it's it's awesome for them, and it's awesome for Google because a lot of people downloaded Chrome and use that now as their default browser. But people seem to like it.
So is there a bit of a coda to the Wilderness Downtown project, the Wilderness Machine? Is that sort of another?
Yeah, there's this other thing. There's a physical outgrowth of the Wilderness Downtown, which is the Wilderness Machine, which is this thing that kind of pops up places unannounced, and it actually communicates with the website and spits out postcards. I'll show you a picture of it. It has a pen mechanism. That's actually what it looks like. And it picks up these postcards over here, and it writes them out here. And I wanted to, here it is in its case at the Arcade Fire Show. And it's actually going to be in Wired magazine is having a pop-up space in New York starting next week, so it'll be there through Christmas. But it writes out postcards that people have submitted online in the project and then spits them out, and then people can find them. There's a unique code for each person's postcard that they can actually write a postcard back to the person whose postcard they found. So it's sort of like this convoluted, overly technological message in a bottle scenario. And then each postcard has has embedded dormant birch tree seeds. So you can actually, this is the front of the postcard. So you can actually plant the postcard, water it, and a birch tree seed will grow out of it. And then there's some really like beautiful poetic postcards that people have done. All these brushstrokes are recorded into a file. So the website, the website sends them to the machine, and then the machine follows these brushstrokes and actually writes out the postcard into physical form.
Awesome. Well, I think we could go on and on and on, but thank you very much. That was amazing. Chris Melk. Thanks, man.